CP2024-28, Agostini Insurance Brokers Limited against Trinidad and Tobago Civil Aviation Authority and Gallagher Insurance Brokers Trinidad and Tobago Limited, interested party.
Good morning, panel members, Mr. Chair. Should it please you, I, Shari Fitzpatrick, appear on behalf of Agostini Insurance Brokers Limited, the applicant.
Good morning. Good morning. Excuse me, Ms. Fitzpatrick. There are some things that we need to go through before we begin the proceedings. So we would treat with introductions at a later stage in the process. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Can parties confirm that they are hearing me clearly? Applicant, respondent?
Yes, correct.
Thank you. I am David Shallery, presiding as the panel chair for today's session. The other members of the panel today, to my left, Ms. Joy Joseph Lara, and to my right, Mr. Jason Edwards. Is the applicant or the representative for the applicant present?
Yes, yes, Mr. Chair. Again, for the record, Shari Fitzpatrick for the applicant, Agostini Insurance Brokers Limited.
Thank you. Is the respondent or the representative and or the respondent for the representative present? The respondent, sorry, present.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the panel. I am Margaret Rose. I'm instructed by Ms. Dina Marie Smith, and we are here representing the respondent. The respondent is present, represented by Ms. Sandra Warner.
Thank you. Is the interested party or a representative for the interested party present?
Good morning, honorable panel. Good morning, Mr. Chair. I am Kimberly Senath. I am in-house legal counsel for the interested party, Gallagher Insurance Brokers Trinidad and Tobago Limited. With me is Ms. Christina Bermudez-Lucky, who is the representative for the company.
Thank you very much, Ms. Senath.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Everyone, before we begin today's proceedings, I would just like to go through some ground rules governing the procedures today. So before we commence, I'd like to remind you of these rules. For example, ensure that you mute your microphone when you're not addressing the panel. Remember to unmute the microphone when it's not your turn to speak, and do so directly into the microphone. We're using multiple devices, or there are multiple devices in a shared room, for example. Mute all microphones and only ensure the one that is being used will be unmuted. This is to avoid any feedback or giving rise to any technical difficulties. Avoid interrupting a speaker. Let the speaker finish before you attempt to do so. You can use the raise your hand feature in Teams when desirous of interrupting a speaker, except when you are raising an objection. Ensure that you are clearly visible by maintaining a reasonable distance from the camera so that we can see your head and upper body. It must be remembered that the witnesses must not be able to hear the evidence of other witnesses, and therefore they would not be allowed to have access to the open link or to have access to the proceedings until the time has arisen for them to speak. Thereafter, they may remain in the proceedings if they wish, but they cannot be in the proceedings before they have spoken. Or the parties and witnesses would be required to show the panel the room in which they are sitting and to give evidence by turning the video device around the room to ensure that we can determine whether they will be receiving any additional assistance by way of documents, persons, or any other prompts without the panel's permission. So permission must be sought from the panel for any of that to happen. No unauthorized recording of the proceedings is allowed. However, parties to the proceedings can request access to the record of the hearing by filing the prescribed Form 16, that is Form 16, to the office. So if you wish to get a record the record of today's proceedings, you may file your Form 16. An important part, in the event that connection is lost in any way or interrupted during the hearing by electronic means, the representatives and or the parties must immediately notify the hearing secretary by calling 226-2477 extension 1161. I would repeat that, 226-2477 extension 1161, stating the precise time at which connectivity was either lost or interrupted. This must also be confirmed as soon as practicable by sending an email to challenge@opr.org.tt, challenge@opr.org.tt, and you must quote the case reference number in the subject line and copy to all other parties involved in the matter today. With that being said, we may commence proceedings today in accordance with Part 5 of the Act, the Challenge Proceedings Regulations, and Part 10 of the Hearing Rules and Procedures. So we will move to preliminary matters. The panel would like to raise one preliminary matter before we move to the applicant and the respondent in terms of preliminary matters. The panel, the hearing secretary would have received.
If it please you, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, I'm not close enough to the computer to raise my hand. The respondent does have an application this morning that is, that I think before we get into the issues, I would like an opportunity to be able to make. With your leave.
You may proceed, Ms. Rose.
We're respectfully asking whether the panel will exercise their powers to regulate its own procedures this morning by standing down this matter for approximately 2 hours. Within the last 12 hours, I have been, I've had information provided to me, which in my view, may be relevant. I need and must be disclosed to the other side. It has and to the panel. It has not yet been so done. I would like the opportunity to have this information verified before we begin this morning. We've also looked through the record of proceedings that have been filed, and there is a bit of a lack of coordination of the documents there. And we have sought to remedy that and would like the opportunity to refile the record of proceedings as well. So the application, I did have an opportunity to speak to the representative for the applicant, and there is no objection from the applicant's counsel to this application to stand the matter down for 2 hours. Please.
Representative of the applicant, could you confirm the last, please?
Mr. Chair, my friend indeed did have a conversation with me this morning, and I indicated, as I'm indicating now, that I have no objection to the matter being stood down. That is, of course, without prejudice to any objection that the applicant may take to the respondent relying on new information or documents that have not yet been disclosed. I have not yet seen those documents. I would just wish to reserve the applicant's position with respect to that.
Representative for the respondent, has the panel through the secretariat been privy to those documents that you are referring to?
No, please, Mr. Chair, because I must verify the information that has been received, and it was received overnight. And so first thing this morning, there is some verification that I would need to do.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. I know we will now take leave. Let me discuss with the panel, and we would return shortly with a decision.
Much obliged, but Ms.
Participants, we are now back online. Could you please turn your cameras on? Thank you. Okay. Everyone, before we continue, Ms. Rose, I would be given the panel's decision shortly. I would like to raise one of the preliminary matters that the panel would like to bring forward before I give you the decision of the panel on the request that you just made. So the office would have received a witness statement on the 10th of October for a Miss Tiffany Williams. However, the deadline for that witness statement would have been the 8th of October. So I'd like to bring that before the participants today, and I would like to ask the representative of the applicant, would you have any objection to that statement being tendered? And also, do you have it in your, do you have it in your possession?
Mr. Chair, I will serve with the witness statement. I took note of the dates, but I have no objection.
Okay, thank you. I will now give the decision of the panel regarding the request of Ms. Rose. The panel has met and we have decided to grant the stay requested by Ms. Rose. However, we are standing down for 1.5 hours, given the timelines and other arrangements we would have had in place for managing today's conference. So we would stand down for 1.5 hours. Ms. Rose?
I'm obliged, Mr. Chair, and we will endeavor to be back in. My instructing counsel and I may have to separate. I'm unsure because I have to go down to the client's offices to do the verification process. I'm in Port of Spain and the client's offices are in Piarco in Caroni. And so that is going to cut into the time period, which is why I'd asked for the 2 hours, but we will do our best to ensure that we're here in 1.5 hours.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. Noted. So that being said, we are now standing down the proceedings for 1.5 hours, starting at 9:23 a.m. We will resume in 1.5 hours from 9:23 a.m.
Grateful.
Very great.